I love storytelling. Growing up, my friends and I would tell the most elaborate stories filled with love, drama, and heartbreak. We would talk for hours, and then when we see each other again, pick up right back where we left off. Looking back, my obsession with television and watching television makes sense. I would literally craft my day around my television shows. As a kid, everything centered around cartoons. Next, it was soap operas. Then my obsession shifted to nighttime television. Now, everything revolves around football. This passion for storytelling is something I wanted to do all the time. I wrote a short film in graduate school which was produced and screened in Hollywood. As I sat in the theater and watched my words and ideas take on life, and people being entertained by what I wrote, I was hooked. That's what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So I decided I'm moving to California and I'm going to become a writer. Because at that time, if you wanted to do anything in television, Hollywood was the only place you could go. I saw my opportunity working with Turning Point as a means of getting top quality television experience, basically getting my feet wet on the road to Hollywood. I was only going to work here for 2 years and then move to the big time. Well, a few years passed and I was quite frustrated because things were just not working out the way I anticipated. In 2003, Bruce Wilkerson's book, The Dream Giver, encouraged people to follow their God-given destiny. As I read this, I felt like God was saying, it's time to go. Then in early 2004, a movie came out, The Passion of the Christ, and my colleague Scott Ross interviewed Jim Caviezel, who played Jesus. And he talked about the impact of playing that role and hanging on the cross had on him. And Scott shared what Jim said in a chapel one day, and it really impacted me tremendously. I woke up the next morning at 5 a.m. still thinking of the message of the cross. And as I laid there, it was like the Lord snuck up behind me and softly asked me to give him my California dream. I said, Lord, but that's all I have. I don't have a plan B. I cried for like 20 minutes, and the Lord was so gentle. Finally, I said, okay. And even though I had peace, I was still very heartbroken. At church that night, without knowing my decision, my pastor told me privately, he felt God was saying I wouldn't be moving to California. Talk about confirmation. Despite surrendering to God my desire to move to California, I didn't feel like he asked me to give up my creative goals. So I carried on with my work at Turning Point, despite feeling frustrated that my life was not going to turn out the way I hoped and prayed it would. Fast forward 12 years later. Working on Turning Point, I have traveled to places I've never dreamed of, met the most intriguing people from heads of states to actresses, singers, and extraordinary people I've had the privilege to share their story with the world. Every time I see myself on TV, I'm like, who would have thought this is my life? But most importantly, my relationship with God is at a place I don't think it would have been had I not yielded to his request in 2004. As I become more aware of the feedback we're getting from Turning Point, I began to really appreciate the ministry platform God has given me and the number of people who are being impacted by the programs we're producing. There's a lot of new production going on and a lot of new media that's done outside of Hollywood, so my dream is not dead. And honestly, I have no desire to move to California, and that's something I thought I could never, ever say. So to anyone who is struggling with the idea of surrendering everything in their life to God, I say go for it. It was my personal turning point and the best decision I've ever made.